Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Newbies to Movies. I'm Justin, and this is a podcast where we like to talk about new movies we're watching. So, as previously mentioned, Tyler will be away from the show for a while. So, what I plan on doing is kind of just having a new guest on every week to kind of fill in the podcast. But obviously, we'll miss Tyler. But I think this is a really great opportunity as well. Get some very different outside perspectives. The past couple of weeks, me and Tyler have been coming up with a lot of the same scores for the same movies. So get some really different takes, which will be fun this week. And this week we have on Ty, definitely reoccurring guest. You've been on a couple of times now. So how's it going, Ty?
Good. Thanks for the co-host invite.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for helping me out. It's definitely a big help. It's been a lot to take on without Tyler, so we'll see how this goes. But this week we're going to be specifically focusing on espionage films. We decided to do All the President's Men and Goldfinger. Before we get into that, if you want to kind of talk about some things you've been watching, I know you just got knee surgery, so you've been chilling, watching a lot. Tell me the best thing you've watched and the worst thing you've watched.
I have mixed feelings on a new one. I just started Scarpetta. It's about 8 episodes. I'm only about 4 deep. Started off really strong. I don't know. I'm starting to get mixed feelings. Just watched the latest one last night. It has Nicole Kidman, Patricia. It's basically on a Patricia Cornwell novel. Jamie Lee Curtis, Bobby Cannavale, some really good rock star actors. The plot's starting to get a little fuzzy for me, but so let's see how the outcome of this one goes. But I was really excited on the first couple, but the latest one has me a little puzzled where we're headed. The last couple of weeks, been surfing around Zero Dark 30 since we are on espionage type thing, sort of a state on state actor type thing. It's probably the third time I've watched it. Sort of one of my new go-tos if I see it. I'm going to check it out just because it's probably been 4 or 5 years since I've seen it. But then I stumbled upon Midway, 2019 film. It was big when it came out. I just never ever got a chance to see it. But it's sort of the Pearl Harbor attack, our response. There's some really good actors in that as well. Really came out very positive, strong movie. Glad I watched it. Then I checked out a couple you actually referenced to me, the Batman. Really good. I have mixed feelings on the different Batman series, but this one is really a strong one. Then the short film you recommended, The Singers, really good short film, really short, like 15, 20 minutes, but still a really strong performance. And surprisingly shocker comes out of the blue that some of the people in the bar, I don't want to give it all away, but it's a really interesting short film.
Yeah, I loved that short film. So basically what the director did was he found like a bunch of viral sensations, like the bartender. He was like a singer in the subway in New York. And then the one guy that played It Hurts Me Too, he was like a New Orleans street jazz band player. One of the guys was like on The Voice Australia, just like a bunch of different people who went like viral on social media, not actors at all, and then kind of transformed them into this short story. So I thought that was really neat. I haven't checked out Midway yet, but I have heard that it got pretty good reviews, so I definitely want to watch that. And then the Batman was one I recommended to you because, like you said, it's very different Batman. It's not, superhero kind of big time, worldwide threat fighting Batman. It's definitely just kind of a grounded detective, fun thing in there. A lot is coming out for the second one. We just found out this week actually that it's going to take place just a couple months after in the snow. So December in Gotham. A lot of people are thinking Mr. Freeze might be the villain, so we'll see. But I'm excited to see that.
Awesome.
And then I kind of told you about this yesterday. I've been watching The Boys. I was kind of explaining to you how it's like, what if superheroes were in the real world, just kind of corporate weapons and all they cared about is money, power, and sex, basically. Yeah, they're on the last season right now, and it's getting pretty intense because they do not care about killing a lot of main characters at this point. They're finishing it up. Yeah, it's pretty dark show. Definitely recommend that, but wouldn't eat before. It gets really, really gory. So what do you think about espionage films?
Yeah, at the core of an espionage, I think it has to be within state threats. So, like U.S., because we've had threats within our own.
Yeah.
But then you talk about cross country, state on state actors, trying to do harm or to some of the citizens, or so it's sort of that core element, trying to figure out who is the bad guy and why are they bad guy, and always that sort of element of how you're going to catch them and prevent the big explosion or the big information getting out, or sort of that key element of almost like a detective thing, but more with state on state or intra-state threats that you're trying to mitigate.
Yeah, yeah, totally makes sense. I wrote down here, I was like, gotta have that investigative nature to it. The stereotypical like double cross, triple cross, the whole secret agent thing is always pretty cool. But again, it can be super like a political state thing, like you were saying, or it can also be this super fantastical action event, just depending on how it's depicted. So that's always cool. So yeah, getting into the first movie, if you want to start, Ty, with Goldfinger.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Tyler did such an incredible job leading these things. I'm sure I'll stumble here and there, so apologize already. The Goldfinger, obviously in the Bond series, I think they're up about 25, 26 now. I think they're talking about coming out with one this year, with who's going to be the new Bond and all that kind of energy. So this one, Goldfinger, is first, the third in the series. So doing a lot of homework on this because I do respect the Bond series. A lot of chatter in there. I would say in the circles of this is in the top tier, maybe top five of the Bond series.
Okay.
But there's Sean Connery, so it's now obviously the first Bond, help establish that franchise. And this in the third series sort of established that sort of formula. What I often consider, there's always gadgets involved. There's always villains. You know, they now sort of come with those theme songs that often go very public, out mainstream. And then based on our espionage or so that constant action, trying to figure out who the bad guy is, what they're up to, and how we're going to stop them element. And so also in this one sort of started off some of you'll see throughout the series, the Aston Martin famous car, and then a lot of the sort of Bond circles that you see when we talk into some of the characters and stuff. They're through a good first half of the franchise. The M, the Q, some of those mainstream characters that we throw out to some of the series. Very excited because I grew up on sort of the later mid series in the 70s, late 70s, mid 80s. So it was this series or Sean Connery series before that. So I didn't check some of these out till I was in my 30s actually. And so it was first time I saw Goldfinger, I was like, wow, one I missed on. But at the time was pretty current on the Bond series coming out. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about this one.
So I never really got into the Bond series besides kind of in a similar situation that you were saying. Like, I've only ever seen the Daniel Craig ones because that was just kind of out for my generation, right? And so coming into this, I was like, I didn't really know what to expect. I was like, okay. So as soon as we started, I was like, wow, it's just like these are where all the iconic espionage sounds come from, like the score, the I don't know, just the gadgetry, all of this. I was like, I can't even call it like cliche or corny because this is what started it. This is what kicked off all of that. So you can't even call it that. That's where it kind of stemmed from. But yeah, super neat. And then obviously the plot is kind of tracking, him going after Goldfinger. Goldfinger kind of wants to nuke the U.S. reserve plot twist.
Yeah, so you bring up an interesting topic right off the bat of who's the best Bond, because like you said, you came in the Craig era, which I'm a big Craig fan now. I came in the Roger Moore era, so I consider Roger Moore the no more number one in my eyes, just because that's what came out when I was coming up. Craig is a second for me now. If you talk to a lot of folks, Sean Connery is probably still in their top. If you talk to older folks, They probably their number one. So it's interesting conversation just on who's the number one Bond.
Dude, I tell you what, I haven't seen a lot of the other Bonds, but man, does this guy got game with the women. I mean, he does not play.
No, he does not play. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started then on the plot. I gave it a solid 8. I like it when they move, especially in the Bond series. A lot of espionage movies move like this, right? Because you're often talking state on state concerns, but so they weave throughout Miami, Kentucky, England, and Switzerland. So the sort of core plot of figuring out what the goldfish is up to after the Fort Knox, basically getting all the gold.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to follow. The pacing dragged slightly in the Kentucky, I thought, period. Dragged a little bit, but it seems like almost like Bond stumbles upon information. And so other than that, I thought it was really good. The good plot, really solid. I'll give it an 8.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely felt like he was more of just like a lucky guy than anything. He would just kind of stumble upon like really important parts of Goldfinger's plan. You're definitely right, that Kentucky scene where he's kind of imprisoned, but also there trying to like, I don't know, Goldfinger was kind of holding him just to like show the agency that like, no, he's just here like talking, like we're just friends and everything like that. So that part kind of slowed down the plot as well. And then I felt like the ending, I don't know, it was a cool action sequence, but it was really fast. I started looking at, I just clicked up to see how much time was left. There was like 10 minutes left when they finally went into the actual gold reserve itself. And I was like, oh, this is going to wrap up like fast. Like, I don't know what's about to happen here, but definitely interesting plot line and a lot of, far-fetched ideas like that gas just being opened up right
Yeah.
above them and all of a sudden everybody passes out. But really cool. Definitely a fun action movie.
Yeah. All right, moving on to characters. I really like the characters. I gave it a 9.5. I think Sean Connery, obviously, I believe 6 official, and then he did sort of can't come back on the 7th Bond series. Help establish that franchise. So it's a really rock solid performance. Honor Blackman, I thought she did as Pussy Galore. I thought she did a fantastic job. Even the Harold Scatto, the odd job guy with a hat, I thought that was even though it got a lot of talking to it, very powerful. And then I was alluded to earlier, some of them what became mainstays in the franchise. Bernard Lee as M, Lois Maxwell, famously Miss Moneypenny, 14 times, and then Desmond and Lauren as Cute, 17-time running. So some of those characters sort of stayed in the franchise for some time. So, but Goldfinger, I thought he did an awesome job. I thought the character really resonated well. I think that's why in this smaller circle, you'll see a lot of chatter about this being in the top 5-ish of the 007 franchise. I think because of Goldfinger, I think he did a really nice job selling that role and making sure everybody understood what his doubtful.
Back and forth banter was always really good. I specifically like the scene where he was about to laser him in half and Connery's just freaking out trying to come up with something to say to get out of it. Like I said, he's super lucky the whole movie.
Yeah, it seems like he always finds a way to get under the skin of bad guy and like to stop whatever. Like, yeah, because he was like within a probably inch of becoming cut in half. And so, okay, moving on to dialogue. I thought the dialogue was pretty sharp. I gave it a 9. There was a lot of good, I thought, one-liners. So, like you're talking about the laser scene where he was basically, Mr. Bond was talking about, you expect me to talk? And he's like, no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. And then one of the fight scenes in the bathroom where threw the guy in the tub and basically got shocked by the little heater thing. Turns and says shockingly, positively shocking. And it is the famous, I think in the first reading up the first movie, they said different versions of it, but I think this is where they really established, it seems like on record anyways, this famous martini shaken, not stirred, that you pretty much see throughout the series now, but sounds like this movie is where that sort of canned phrase became a initial and official. So yeah, a lot of good one-liners. I thought the dialogue wasn't too exhaustive. There's always some woman in every scene, right? Almost would help him out.
Yeah. I thought it was always super funny. Him and Odd Job's relationship was always hilarious to me because he'd say some really funny stuff to him, but Odd Job didn't talk, so he'd just be staring blankly at him. I always thought that was hilarious. He said, "Manners, Odd Job. I thought you always took your hat off for the ladies." And he's just staring at him, not saying anything. That was a funny bit throughout the whole movie, but yeah, it was good dialogue.
Cinematography, I give it a 7.5. I saw it was solid. Some of the color compositions stood out. The gold, obviously, throughout. I think they did a good job there. Some of the fight scenes, though, I thought there was awkwardly sort of, I think they could have pictorially put it from a different, just seemed like some weird angles. I didn't really get a gist of who had the upper hand, obviously, when he's thrown up against a wall or something. But I thought the action scenes of the fights, I thought could have been shot a little differently and make it a little bit easier for the viewer. But overall, that's pretty solid. Said,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's definitely one of those things that comes with time too. Just being so old, like the action was definitely like the bam and pow, like the comic books. You could definitely tell that. One thing that stood out though, I thought the driving scenes were actually shot really well. Like it did not look as bad as I thought it was gonna look, especially with the gadgetry and I believe it was a Rolls Royce. I thought it was done super well. Those parts didn't look that corny to me at all. Even the crashes when he crashed into the wall, everything like that, it looked pretty decent for its time, which was pretty good. But yeah, cinematography was pretty decent. Just also understanding for the time period as well.
yeah, exactly. And moving on to acting, I give it a solid 8. Connery, I think, put in sort of his solid 007 performances. Is interesting reading up on after it seems like a lot of the folks, the actors that do the Bond series, they either like that, like Roger Moore, he accepted it, always sort of considered himself in that genre and that theme, where Sean Connery is very well documented. He tried to get away from the Bond series afterwards, doing a lot of different roles and stuff. So he's had an iconic career, but seems like he tried to distance himself a little bit from that 007 series. But great performance. I still see him as one of the top 007. I thought Hunter Blackman, really, the Pussy Galore, I thought she did an outstanding job for a female. Early, that was, 60s. Almost stole some of the show, I thought, her performance. And then Goldfinger, Kurt, I think did a really solid job as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of Sean Connery before, honestly. Like, I definitely want to go into more of his Bond movies just to kind of see his overall, acting skills. But I have seen him in the Indiana Jones franchise, and obviously he's a lot older then, so it's interesting to see like how his acting has transformed over time. I like doing that for any actor, but in general, in this movie, I thought the acting was pretty good. Yeah, Pussy Galore's character was really funny. And it's really cool at this time too to see like such a strong female role. You didn't really see that much at this time period, so having such a strong female role is pretty interesting to see as well.
Yeah. All right, moving on to sound effects. I gave it a solid 7. Uh, to today's standards, it's hard to really, you know, we've the whole industry has sort of transformed in that regard. But for first time, I thought it was solid. Some of the sound effects, the explosions, I would say is more artificial for today's purposes. But for the time period, though, I thought it did a solid job. I mean, it wasn't anything that was too gimmicky, like you said. Sometimes I'd be like, okay, it just fell. It didn't, it didn't need to have the bat, like you said, the old series. I felt like all of a sudden we were going to see something like, oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, the sound design was good. One thing, obviously, I said like I haven't seen many of the Bond films, but hearing the sound effects, the score in this, I was like, "Oh, I've heard that before," whether, it's used in other movies or I've just seen clips before, but such an iconic score as well, and just that sound, I don't know if they carried it out through the Bond franchise and kept using it, or if it's and, I'm sure it's in Austin Powers and other, like, kind of make fun of the Bond franchise movies, but, yeah, it's time to
All right, moving on to editing. I thought sort of the efficient storytelling and cutting from scene to scene, I thought was pretty efficiently. Was I where I was lost where we were? Some of the cut scenes, what I alluded to a little bit, I thought they could have edited a little bit differently. Just a couple scenes get jittery almost. It's a really solid job. Other than the fighting scenes, I thought were pretty well done as far as the editing perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I think the editing was done pretty well, especially like we were talking about for its time. The one thing that we kind of talked about earlier was just that Kentucky kind of scene where they were kind of sitting around for a while, it felt like, where Goldfinger was, explaining his master plan and giving them the muhahaha kind of thing. It felt like that dragged a little, and it took a while but also um, Agent 008, trying to find 007 and sure if he's like doing okay or what's going on. That was kind of drawn out a little bit for me. So if I had to say one thing, I'd probably cut 10-15 minutes from that, add 10-15 minutes onto the final action sequence. And I think it would go a long way. But again, really iconic movie for its time. So I can't even bash on it too much.
All right, moving on to set design. I gave it a solid 10. I really liked, I mean, that's what I would look like out of the 007. You're looking for those extravagant scenes, and you walk up to this huge, it looked like it was a oil container or water container, huge building. He opens this little swivel door and you open up, it's like a luxury office. It's set up. It's like, that's what I looked for in the 007, these sort of elaborate scenes, the laser. You really felt like there was a laser getting ready to cut him in half.
Yeah.
So that's what I really like about the 007 series and Mission Possible. Some of the other, ones out there too. But that's what I look for those things, the sort of the big scene sets. And so I think this one really delivers in that regard.
Yeah, especially for its time too. I don't know exactly how much this budget was, but even the differences between the cities we see, right? We see Switzerland as part of maybe they were in Germany for a minute, Miami, Kentucky. You could definitely tell they were in different areas of the world, which was kind of a big deal at this time, right? Like these budgets probably weren't massive, so whether they actually traveled there or just kind of built sets. Either way, it did a good job at distinguishing and making the viewer actually feel like they were in different places moving around the world.
Moving on to directing, I gave a solid 9. Guy Hamilton, really solid career in with the Bond series. He did 3 of them. He did 2 of them in the Roger Moore era, which I really liked that era as well. I think he does a great job of mixing that humor, suspense, the extremely challenging and difficult strategies that the Bond series has, and the pacing of it. Sometimes some of these 007, it seems like it's so fast. We're trying to like, okay, what just happened? Oh no, someone jumping in. But I really like his pace where he lets the scene develop and execute, and then we move on to the next hair on fire scene.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of his other movies just looking here, but I thought it was done pretty well. Like you said, I'd be interested to definitely see how it compares to his other Bond films, just to see, but I think he balanced the comedy, the action aspect of it really well. It never took itself too seriously, right? It wasn't trying to convince the viewer that all this could actually happen. It was understanding that, this was fictional and trying to be an entertainment movie, which was cool.
Yep. And then last category, theme. I gave a solid 8. I think it sort of mixed in well the greed, the power, the cold air. I would argue sort of paranoia, obsession of all things the villain. So yeah, I think really stood on its own and did a really nice job. contrasting all those sort of elements.
Yeah, kind of the stereotypical themes, right, for an espionage movie that greed, the reason behind the villain doing what he does, just that modern villainy, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. But yeah, I think it was done purposeful and well. So like I said, I'd be interested to compare it to some other Bond movies. And I think we're doing Spectre in a couple weeks, Madison told me. So it'll be interesting to compare to that, especially just the big time difference, right? See how
Yep.
the themes change and such a distant period of time.
So yeah, overall, I gave it a 84 out of 100. That was really in my of all the Bond movies, I would say it's in my top five. So, I've seen all of them, and so I think it really holds up well against the series. The Craig era. This could be he left huge shoes to fill. I was a little skeptical, but when they announced his name, I was like, really? You get this little short guy to be all Bond? But he's my number two behind Roger Moore. I think he did a fantastic job of picking and sort of reinventing, because I thought there was a little lull spot before he came in, and so I'm excited to see where they take it from here.
Yeah, so for me, I gave it an 8 or an 8.0. I thought it was a really fun action film. You know, nothing too deep, nothing like we're about to do with All the President's Men, but that's what made it fun, right? That's what these movies are. They're the big blockbuster action films, and I think this was really done well for that. And obviously, it's kind of the building blocks for what this franchise has become. They definitely didn't think it was going to be this at the time. I can't imagine they would ever have thought how big it would have gotten. But yeah, such an interesting way to go about the espionage film. And I got to ask you, who is your fan cast for the next Bond? A lot of people, the reason I ask it, a lot of people have been debating this. You know, some say somebody like Henry Cavill will kind of fit that stereotypical one. But then some also say somebody like Idris Elba would be a neat one too,
I
just because it's
love
a
Dietrich Elbow. I, I think that would be for my eyes, but again, I don't. Well, because again, when they picked Roger Craig, I was like, "There's no way this is gonna. There's no way." Because he came in right after the Pierce Bronson, who I think is the worst. I don't know. I never saw that guy's Bond, never. So when they picked Craig, I was like, "There's no way I'm going to be done with this franchise." And then he just sort of took it to a whole different level. And so I do like use his name. I if they picked him, I would be excited.
So I just quick Google here. Some people say Aaron Taylor Johnson would be interesting. I think he'd be cool. Or Jacob Elordi is on here as well, but he's Australian, so I guess you could just pass it. But we'll see. It should be interesting.
Yep.
We know no matter what happens, they're gonna make $1 billion at the box office. That's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so getting into All the President's Men, don't know much about Watergate. I had no idea this movie was about Watergate, so it was really interesting for me coming in. I mean, besides what I learned in school about Watergate, I was excited to see this as soon as I saw the opening scene, you know, with the people breaking into the Democratic National Headquarters. I was like, oh, this is what this is about. This makes a lot more sense now, considering it's talking about All the President's Men literally in the title. But with the plot, obviously, it's a real fact account of the Washington Post journalists who kind of worked on Watergate. And I guess they wrote a book about it after they had did it. And then this is kind of the putting it into a motion picture from the book. From what I've seen, people say it's pretty accurately translated over from the book as well. So pretty good firsthand account. But they followed the money of the 1972 burglary. Sorry, just folding there. And their persistent reporting exposes the massive illegal intelligence operation that was going on, including the White House. And it ultimately led to President Nixon's resignation. But the way that this plot was told, I gave it a 9. I thought it was a really amazing way to tell this story.
Yeah, it's probably been close to 30 years since I've watched this movie for the first time. I thought it was really good. Always sort of held as a good movie, but man, I'm glad you had me rewatch it, because I forgot how good this movie really was. So yeah, the plot I really liked. I thought it stuck to the plot. I mean, obviously nobody knows the sort of basic premise at this point for Watergate, but as far as sticking to sort of the roots of What Watergate's all about, the plot, I thought was solid. I get it a 9.5. I thought it was really well. Well, again, it's been a long time since I've watched it, but I forgot how good this movie really is.
Yeah, but you're touching on just like the idea of not going into like what the government was telling everybody, instead just staying on that journalism side and strictly telling the story through there. The only thing that we really get from the government is a few press conferences that we see on the TVs throughout the film. And I feel like that's more there just to keep us in tune with what was happening at the same time on the government side, but seeing it just from a journalistic perspective was super neat, which I'm sure I'm going to talk about 10 more times while talking about this. But getting into the characters, obviously, we have Woodstein, as he like to call him, Woodstein, get over here. Bob Woodward, played by Robert Redford, and then Carl Bernstein, played by Dustin Hoffman, were two obviously the big characters, the main characters in this. And I think their banter back and forth, working as basically partners in crime, was really great throughout this movie. A lot of other big side characters as well. You had Jason Robards. I hadn't seen him much in anything else. Hal Holbrook, Jack Warden, Jane Alexander, Meredith Baxter, and Ned Beatley were some other big actors in this, played as more side characters, but I thought the characters were really good. I gave it a 9.
Yeah, same here. Same number I gave. I gave solid performance. Robert Redford holds his own in any movie, but did an outstanding job. Sort of that nitty gritty, selling it. You saw him stumbling through notes on Matchbox notes that a little scrumpled up out of their pockets. That's what you're hoping. That whole journalistic thing you talk about, I thought they really sold that really well. I'm not a huge Dustin Hoffman fan, to be honest with you, but he did a rock solid performance in this, sticking to that sort of roots and nuts and bolts of journalism. So I thought he did a really good job. Again, getting full transparency, if I was to use Dustin Hoffman off, I don't know, I just got mixed feelings about a lot of his performances, but this one, he got to give him credit. He did a really good, nice job.
See, Ty, that's crazy to me. I'm gonna have to do Dustin Hoffman when we can bring you on. I've only seen this, Rain Man, and Kramer versus Kramer, and every time I'm just like, wow, this guy really has it. So maybe we'll do him one week, or just another one of his movies in a different category, and see what's up. But I thought they were both amazing in this.
Yeah.
And then cinematography, I gave it a 10. I thought the cinematography in this was amazing. I specifically love the shots, especially just like the one at the end, but happened multiple times through the film where we're seeing the TV kind of move us along in the plot with what the government's saying in a press conference or an interview. But then you see them in the background working away, right? As just to kind of show like, hey, they don't believe any of this. They don't have any ability to fall for this BS that the government's feeding them. They're the only ones who are absolutely locked in and 100% believe they know what's going on, even through all of the interviews which kind of contradict them and what they're saying. And then, the president and his advisors also saying like they're lying. Like, I just thought it was done so well to kind of portray how they were feeling as characters. And so that's why I give it a 10.
Yeah, I gave 9.5. I thought the way they did the shadowing and the parking garages, the newsroom lighting late at night when they're there by themselves, typing away. You heard, actually, sound effects, we'll get some of that, but, hearing that, contrasting with some of the lighting, the Washington, D.C. atmosphere, I think they did a really nice job selling that. And then even the courtrooms usually is so focused on the judges and the plaintiffs and the defendants, but the back of the courtroom, sort of almost that sort of underlying finding the tidbits of information from people in the courtroom itself. I thought the way they shot some of that was even unique, because usually courtrooms are always about the judge up in front. I thought that some of the way they shot some of the scenes were really unique and different from traditional.
Yeah, and obviously DC being right in our backyard, obviously we feel like we know how it feels, but for this time period, it did feel like such a different city, which is so neat to see as well. little things. We'll get into that with set design. Actually, I'll just do set design now. I gave it an 8. I thought it was really well done in, like I was talking about with DC, little things like the payphones, right? Just payphones being on every corner and them using them all the time to keep their sources anonymous, everything like that. Them just running around the city saying, hey, Library of Congress, let's go figure out what books he checked out. And then they're just running down the street like to go get there. So neat to kind of see how that worked from a journalist perspective, right? Just see back in the day, there was no research you could just do on a laptop. You had to go find out for yourself, and they did it for sure.
I gave the set design 10. I thought it was really depicting the cluttered desk and the newsrooms, the chaos of figuring out what stories the newspapers are running, the parking garages again. I really like some of those scenes. And then going to talk to all the folks they did from where they worked, their homes, in the talking in the hallway real quietly, even though no one was really, there. Almost like, oh my goodness, every word has got to be watched what they're saying. So yeah, I really like the way they set a lot of those scenes.
Yeah, they definitely set it up like somebody was watching at all times, right? I mean, Watergate itself, they were worried that somebody was wiretapping the Democratic headquarters. And so just having that idea play through of being like, maybe somebody is listening at all times and we need to be careful of that, even as journalists, right?
Yeah.
Dialogue, I gave it a 10. I thought this movie was heavily like grounded on the dialogue. I think this movie, if the dialogue is bad in this movie from the actors, I think this movie falls flat fast because, the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, they're really not finding much. They're really just trying to get an inch so they can take it a mile. And so that first 30 minutes, if you're not locked in with that movie as well, then you're going to fall off and be like, I don't know what I'm watching here. But you are kind of intrigued to see like, what is that thing that they're going to find that's going to take them to the next step. One of my favorite lines from this was when they were talking to Hugh Sloan and Bob Woodward is the one responding. Hugh Sloan said, I'm a Republican. And Bob Woodward said, I am too. And it just kind of shows that,
Yeah, I really like the dialogue too. Seems like every person they talked to had a little piece of the puzzle. And so everybody they talked to, they had to keep, okay, where does this fit into the puzzle? Even Deep Throat, who knew probably most, across the spectrum of information, follow the money, would give him these, okay, here's a bigger piece, but I'm not putting all the puzzle together for you. You got to keep putting it together. So I thought each one of those dialogues helped, at the very end, sort of put the picture together. Yeah, it did go high enough to where the president had to take accountability. So
yeah, it's kind of off topic, but I was reading Letterbox reviews last night, and this guy gave it 5 stars. He's like, "Yeah, there's a character named Deep Throat." It's just like you can't even make this stuff up. That's why I feel like it's such a good firsthand account. Like, where do you even come up with something like that besides it just happening, right? For acting, I gave it a 9. I thought obviously really standout performances by Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. I'd kind of texted you earlier this week, and this is just me being young and naive. I was like, dude, I'm watching Redford in this movie, and I can't help but think of Brad Pitt. Obviously, reading about it afterwards, I realized that Brad Pitt influenced so much of his acting on Robert Redford. He's been very vocal about that, and it makes so much sense now. We kind of talked about just his mannerisms, just the way he kind of talks when he's on the phone. Like you kind of told me, he kind of double takes at the camera sometimes. It was so neat to see that, especially me watching all kinds of Brad Pitt movies growing up and then seeing like, oh, this is where that came from. It was neat to see it the other way around rather than, yeah, vice versa.
yeah, I thought the acting was spot on as well. Redford, I'm a huge Redford fan, so I always like his pace that he puts into the characters. And these guys were getting ready on the verge of being fired, and they almost stumble into this huge monster story. But Hoffman, again, I don't shy away not being a Hoffman fan, but got to give him credit. He did an outstanding job being energetic, sort of that chaotic side of the relationship. I thought the give him you take with Redford was really good. And then Jason Bonards, I thought he did an outstanding job as well. So yeah, I really like the act.
My favorite scene, probably just to bring this up with Hoffman and Redford, was when he finally got one of their leads to talk. That girl, he went into her house and he said he was just pounding coffee in there just to keep her like feeling safe and to keep him busy. And then he got back to the apartment and he's just bouncing off the walls. He's throwing napkins out of his pocket. He wrote on all kinds of stuff. Redford can't keep up because it's just going 1,000 miles an hour. They're both excited because they finally got someone to talk. I thought that scene was so great, and it's probably so relieving as a journalist, to finally get something you've been wanting so bad and working so hard to get, constantly getting rejected, and then you finally get it, and then you're also on 8 cups of coffee. I imagine that's pretty exciting.
And they kept going back and forth where Hoffman at one point he thought he had something and Redford were like, no, it's not enough. There'd be other scenes where Redford thought he had it and he's like, Hoffman would be throwing, cold water on him like, no, 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 we don't have enough yet. We don't have enough yet. So they kept going back and forth at that regard.
Yeah. And it's good, right? It's not like a good cop, bad cop thing, but it's like a thing as a journalist. I guess you got to really check each other all the time just to make sure, because, one of you misses something and then that's your ass. So getting into directing, I gave it a 9, directed by Alan J. Pakula. I think it definitely brought that moody, journalistic approach to the story. It showed 100% the painstaking work that is journalism. It was so interesting to see a movie like this just really dive into the nitty gritty and just every scene, like we said, we're only seeing it from their perspective and kind of unraveling the story with them. So it was neat to see that, especially for me, not knowing a ton of the details about Watergate. I know about Watergate, but not everything. So it was cool to see it unravel with them. None of it was previously spoiled for me, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I gave a solid 9. I thought it was really well directed. I thought I sort of phrase it as a slow burn, but I think they do that because they wanted to show the mythology, methodical way you have to go about putting together a story and make sure it's truthful. And everybody goes, by the facts and not, kind of conjecture or throw misinformation in there. So I thought even though it was a slow burn, you could just, kept building and building and building. A lot of the action movies today be like, oh, that'd be done in 20 minutes, where it's over a couple of hours. But I thought the director did a nice job of pacing that out and kept you, okay, this is another bit of information. I'm sitting there trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together myself.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely puts you in the journalist shoes. You were excited for their wins, sad for their losses, but also scared for their lives,
Yep.
as if you were right there with them. So that was a really neat way of doing it. Getting into soundtrack, I gave it an 8. It's composed by David Shire. I thought it was a pretty good soundtrack. Definitely added a suspenseful score where it was needed. Nothing too crazy, not any crazy sound effects or anything like that. But it was there when it needed to be, just to kind of heighten the tension for the viewer, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I gave it a solid 9. I thought it was really done. Even walking in the garages, you hear the footsteps, the typewriters constantly, in the newsroom, even the office atmosphere. Those 1,000 people talking on phones, and you're trying to concentrate on your little piece of the puzzle. It's like they're talking to somebody on the phone. They're all this office chaotic sounds going on. So I thought it was well done.
Yeah, the one scene I will highlight was when Redford was sitting there on the phone, just kind of going back and forth with the different leads. They would hang up, they'd call him back, he'd be on the phone with another person. There's newsroom people are watching the TV in the background, cheering, screaming, all that kind of stuff. And it was just chaotic to watch. And I thought that was so neat to see as well. The theme, I gave it an 8. Obviously, pretty big themes in this. Obviously, the role of free press and how important that is to America, but also the world in general, right? Being able to tell these stories that the people should have a right to hear, but also the dangers of political paranoia, right? We see hundreds and hundreds of leads being scared for their lives, and not being able to talk about the fraud and the lying and cheating and stealing going on in the government that they work for, but also
Yeah, I gave it a solid 9 per theme. I really like the underlying theme, right? That's what press is there for, I think. Keep the power checked because, face it or not, people love that power and they'll do anything to keep it. To be honest, in my sort of optic on it,
yeah.
that sort of even early on in Whitford, if I was going down to the courtroom, just these 5 guys break into Democratic National Committee quarters. Thought you just go down and record something, come back, but you could just tell from that very first, like, something isn't right. Like, Colombian dudes, like, for showing up and like, what? Like, something different lawyers, like, what is going on? And so you could tell right off the bat, something wasn't right.
And then getting into editing, I gave it a 10 here. I thought this was masterfully edited. And like we said, that really slow burn, really putting the viewer in the perspective of the journalist. Very intense newsroom scenes, very high stakes investigating. I think the scenes with, Woodward and Deep Throat were so interesting as well. Super, super tough. And, Woodward kind of felt captured by Deep Throat, right? He was like, always very respectful to him. But then finally at the end, he kind of just snapped on him and was like, no, like, I need you to give me this information right now. I thought that was so great. And I think Deep Throat kind of gained respect for Woodward at that point in time. I thought that scene was edited really perfect. And, you don't have that scene without the buildup of their relationship as well. So yeah, I gave it a 10 there for sure.
Yeah, I give it a 10 as well. I was trying to think of scenes that, were wasteful or, not needed. I can't think of one. Just every little conversation, even if it wasn't a formal piece of the puzzle, it was like, oh, okay, well, you check that box. That person, wasn't what we thought it was. So I thought pretty much every scene was a value add in that regard. It wasn't something like, oh, this is a waste of time. Why the heck are we talking to this person? Just again, goes back, you got to talk to tons of people to put that story together.
Yep, yep. And for my overall score, I gave this a 9.0 out of 10 or a 90, as Tyler would like to say. It's a 5-star movie for me. I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. It was a real shocker for me, kind of coming into it not knowing what this movie was at all. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I would honestly probably like to go rewatch this at some point soon just to see what other things I might have missed out on, if there was any other clues that kind of led me or misled me in any other direction. But I love this movie. I thought it was great all around.
Yeah, I ended up giving it a 92. I thought it was, again, I've been probably over 30 years since I've watched the first time. I always thought, yeah, it was a good movie if you ask me. But yeah, since I've watched it again, yeah, I forgot how good this movie really is. It's really a great movie.
Yeah, and just a heads up, Tyler picked the movies this week, and there was a character named Pussy Galore and a character named Deep Throat. So he might be trolling us from beyond the podcast. I don't know what's going on here, but very interesting character names this week. Yeah, so now we're going to get into a espionage draft. I think this draft should be very interesting for us because, like we've talked about, so many different ways you can go about doing espionage, right? You can really lean on the spy thriller side of it, or you can go heavy on this investigative side of it, which should be interesting to see here. So a little bit shorter of a draft this week, just because there isn't a ton of espionage movies out there. So our categories this week are going to be Oscar nominated, box office over 100 million, franchise lead. So in that category, you'd obviously pick, not that hard to think of, somebody like James Bond. Comedy would be the next category, and then wild card. So just 5 categories here. And then after that, I'll get into what Tyler sent me as his top 5 espionage films. I don't want to announce those before because then we'll definitely use them in the draft. But so yeah, we will. Let me do a little name generator here. Should have had this prepared. Sorry. All right. Ty, you are going first.
All right.
And we're going to do snake style. So you'll go, I'll get 2 picks, then you 2 picks, back and forth.
Okay. I'm going to just start off with the Oscar nominations.
Okay.
Huge fan of this movie. Came out in 2012, won Best Picture. Ben Affleck, I thought, put a monster job in the movie Argo. I thought it was a great, sort of agency where I retired from, going out and rescuing some hostages. Just thought it was a really good, probably more of a theater-atric, type movie, but I thought the way it was put together, the way it was sold and really explained that story, did an awesome job. And so I thought, sometimes when I see the Oscar winners, I'm like, I could see how they get there. This one, I really like, yes, they got it right.
I've heard pretty amazing things about this movie, and I've yet to see it, but Definitely one I'd like to do on the podcast because of how good of things I've heard about it. All right, let's see here. I think for my Oscar nominated, I'm gonna go ahead and get this one out because I know you like this movie. I'm gonna take Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
Obviously, the film um, kind of attacking going after Osama bin Laden. I think it was really well done. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I just remember kind of being in awe about how well it was done, especially it was done pretty recently after the actual assassination of Osama bin Laden happened. So definitely interesting to see and being done that closely to it. We'll see if they ever make one later down the line, like a remake or anything like that. See what ideas they could put out there and what information they couldn't put out there. So, let's see. For my next one, I don't know where I want to go here. I guess I would take. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do my wild card just because I don't see where it fits in. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take wild card Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah.
Definitely a different one, being that it's kind of in the superhero field. But, the espionage behind this is kind of the breaking down of Shield, right? Hydra infiltrating Shield, and kind of where Captain America has to, draw the line and decide who he trusts, who he doesn't trust, who's after him, who's trying to aid him. And then obviously you have the introduction of Winter Soldier. I think this is probably my favorite Marvel movie to date. So well done, and yeah, I think the way they went about this compared to other Marvel films was super well done.
Nice. Okay, I think I'm gonna do a box office over 100 million for me for the next one. And I sort of alluded this earlier when I was talking about Goldfinger about Daniel Craig resetting the. I'll phrase it as resetting the 007 franchise because after the Pierce Brosnan's horrific series, when Casino Royale came out in 2006, my expectations were low. But there's so much buzz going on. This is the only movie I ever went to in the theaters twice. So I feel like I contributed to the 600 some million worldwide that it made because I went twice. And again, first and only movie I went to twice in the theater. Because the first time I was so shocked. I was like, holy cow, this is 007. And then I was like, not even a week later, I was like, I got to go see it again. I was so shocked, how well he did a job of playing 007. That sort of resetting the whole 007 franchise. So over 100 million, I'm going Casino Royale.
Dude, seeing it twice, you'd think Daniel Craig would write you a letter, she said. Yeah, I don't remember if I've seen this one. I know I've seen Skyfall, and I think I've seen Spectre too, but I'm trying to remember. I don't know. I got to go back and watch the Daniel Craig ones anyway after this week. So, all right, you got another pick here.
Let's do franchise lead. Was going back and forth on this because I am a huge James Bond and a Jack Ryan fan. I was trying to what's my number one? So I'm going to go ahead and take Bond as my number one franchise, just because I think there's such a storybook. I'm excited to see where they go with the next chapter, but it's almost like the Bond series, where you wait for this. What's the next chapter series going to look like and be like?
Yeah. All right. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and take my box office over 100 mil. I'm going to take the movie Tenet. Definitely kind of a different espionage film as well, especially seeing how much this has to do with time and jumping through time with being Christopher Nolan. But I really like this movie. Definitely on the bottom half of Christopher Nolan movies, but I mean, when it's a Christopher Nolan movie, it's just different compared to everybody else. And this is one of my favorite. I know a lot of people don't like this movie, but it's one of my favorite. It took me a couple watches to be like, oh, I understand what's going on. It's a lot of jumping and can be hard to keep up with, but definitely one of my favorites for sure. And then I think for franchise lead, I'll go ahead and just take a funny one here. I'll go ahead and take Austin Powers. Obviously hilarious and definitely making fun of all the espionage films, but it's so funny, so well done. by Seth Meyers. Yeah, I love it. Sorry, not Seth Meyers, Mike Myers.
Mike Myers.
Yeah, yeah, it's hilarious, and yeah, definitely probably should be hearing that name again here at the comedy section.
All right. Speaking of comedy, I'll go ahead and take my. This is probably my quirkiest espionage movie I've ever seen, but I've seen it twice now just because it's so quirky. It's got a lot of my favorite stars in it. Burn After Reading, 2008. Brad Pitt, John Malkovich, George Clooney. I mean, just some rock star. It just you could talk about stupidity in espionage world. This movie is sort of takes that sort of slant to it of like you really get some dumb people involved in espionage. Brad Pitt just does a masterful job. Frances McDormand, she did an awesome job. Just people, everyday people think, I think I'll just get in the espionage business here. No, dumb people should not be involved in espionage.
I don't know how I've never heard of this movie, but damn, does this cast go deep too?
Yeah.
I mean, J.K. Simmons, Richard Jenkins, John Malkovich, Tilda Swinton. Wow, yeah, it's going. You should this one out.
You have to check it out. It's hilarious. It's probably more of a, I would say, phrase it maybe a cult type thing than a mainstream type Austin Powers. It's like it's more of a culty type thing. But if you're looking for quirky, it's a little fun, off the beaten path espionage movie, it's pretty funny. I bet.
Yeah. All right. Let me see here. Yeah. Wait, no, you have one more pick, right?
Wild Card, yeah. So,
Yeah. No, you're okay. You're okay. I just want to make sure I didn't take it out of order.
Wild Card. So this one, I don't think it really got box office. I forgot to look up how much I don't remember it even coming out. I just remember a few years ago, like wow, how did I miss this one? But it has a whole litany of stars I love: Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier, Dan Aykroyd. I mean, River Phoenix. I mean, just tons and tons of peepers. Came out in '92. Sneakers, one that I've watched ever since I stumbled across it. I can't remember when I first saw it, but I've seen it a few times now. It's just one of those kiki sort of tactical aspects of espionage, and all the stars came out to play for this one. James Earl Jones. I mean, just the whole litany of stars in this thing. Really good, rock solid movie.
Sorry, I missed it. What was the name of the movie?
Sneakers.
Okay. I've never heard of that one, but I'll have to check it out too. Would you say it's more like the action one or like a comedy?
Action.
Okay, gotcha. I'll have to check that out. For my last one for the comedy section, I'm going to have to take, just because we did Goldfinger this week, I'm going to take Austin Powers and Goldmember. So funny. All his movies are so funny. But yeah, just such an iconic role too. Yeah, just obviously making fun of all the espionage movies, but taking that kind of corny, cheesy thing like we were talking about earlier and just riding it all the way.
And there's so many mainliner out there, people, using some of the phrases out of that series nonstop. You can't, I don't even think you can go a week without hearing someone saying some phrase out of some of those.
All right, let's run through our teams real quick. For Oscar nominated, I have Zero Dark 30. For box office over 100 million, I have Tenet. For franchise, I have Austin Powers. For comedy, I have Austin Powers and Goldmember. And then wild card, I have Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
All right, and for me, I have for Oscar nomination. Oh no, sorry, for over 100 million, Casino Royale. Oscar nomination, Argo. Franchise league, James Bond. My wild card, Sneakers.
Yes.
Sneakers. And then comedy, Burn After Reading.
Cool. Yeah, some just to bring up some honorable mentions that I wouldn't say we missed out on, we just didn't pick. Obviously we have the Mission Impossible franchise. I know Tyler's a big fan of that, as well as Jason Bourne. Kingsman, we didn't bring up anything of that. I know you had mentioned Jack Ryan as a big one. And even something like Despicable Me is definitely a spy kids movie, which is cool as well. But yeah, Tyler sent me his top 5 espionage films, so we'll talk about those real quick. Starting off at number 5, he has Munich. I haven't seen this one before. I don't know if you've seen it. I've read a little bit about it.
No, I haven't seen that one either. I've heard about it, but I haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah. Number 4, he had Argo, which obviously you picked, and I talked about me wanting to watch. I know that's a big one, and people say it's one of Ben Affleck's best films. Then number 3, he has Mission Impossible Fallout. Again, I know he's a huge fan of that franchise and Tom Cruise in general, but I think that's one of the newer Mission Impossible ones, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Mission Impossible series. If you talk about teamwork, that team is probably one of the tightest teams out there. When I think of teamwork, the Mission Impossible is one of those movies I would say go to because that team is incredible. Some of the stuff they've done.
Yeah, and obviously Tom Cruise just being on crack and doing every stunt imaginable. Is a really neat thing you don't see every day.
Yeah.
His number 2 was Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Totally agree here. I think it's a really good espionage movie. I kind of talked about it already. And then his number 1, Zero Dark 30.
Uh,
I think it's a lot of people's top espionage film. Might just be some recency bias, so we'll see how that ages throughout the years. But yeah, pretty solid list by Tyler here.
yeah, that is.
All right. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, Ty. Definitely am going to call on you a lot over these next couple of months to help me out here on the show. But it's always a pleasure having you on.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite. I know it fell well short of Tyler because he always comes in with some great insight and great thoughts on a lot of these movies. So just appreciate the opportunity.
No, no, you're always great. You always come up with some great stuff. So, thank you. And we'll see you next week.
All right.